Hi everyone, I am Vikshamaya Chalkani, Assistant Professor of Physics from Government Degree College for Women, Nalgonda. In this video, I am going to explain gravitation topic. In this, we learn what is gravitational field, what is gravitational attraction, what is gravitational potential, and gravitational potential energy. After that, we see the Kepler's laws, the three laws of Kepler. So first law, second law, and third law. So we see one by one. So gravitational field, the space around a body in which its gravitational force of attraction can be experienced. So that space or that region is called gravitational field. Okay. So we see here, we're observing here. So if we take one mass, one object of mass m, capital M, so the field is surrounded by it. So the field strength decreases as going away from the object. So that is shown in color. As we are going away from the object, the color is diminished. Okay? Brightness is diminished. Okay, so that one. In that way, we can have a feeling of gravitational field around a object which is consisting some mass. Okay, so that is the gravitational field. Simply it is the space. In that space we can experience gravitational force when we keep one object of certain mass. It is a gravitational field is a vector field that acts along the line joining the centers of the two bodies. So the gravitational field or the gravitational force acts along the line joining the centers of two bodies. Okay, so such forces are called central force also. So therefore the gravitational force is central force. So central force is defined in another way. So if the force of action is along the line of connecting two bodies, that is central force. So the gravitational force is central force. The gravitational field is central force field. So similarly, electrostatic force also Coulombic force, and electrostatics is also electrostatic field is also central force field. Now the gravitational force of attraction, generally it is the attractional force only. So if we see the Coulombic force, so that is attractive and repulsive depending upon the charges. So like charges repel each other and unlike charges attract each other. So there is the chance for two possibilities. So here it is only attractive force, gravitational attraction. So it is also called as intensity of gravitational field. Okay. So if the gravitational intensity of gravitational field is more, that means attraction is more. The gravitational attraction is more. So if we see the definition, the gravitational attraction at a point in the field is the force experienced by a unit mass placed at that point. Simply, the force per unit mass in the field at a particular point. So that is the gravitational attraction or intensity of gravitational field. If it experiences more force, the intensity of gravitational field is more. Okay, so in above equation, so the charge is the test charge, that is unit charge, that is equal to 1. So here we are taking actually it is the right? So here we are observing if there are two objects, so one object mass is capital M and another object mass is small m, and they are separated by a distance r, and this is the force equation. F is equal to gmm by r square. In place of small m, if we keep the unit mass, so that gives us the gravitation attraction. Okay, now we are getting this equation by substituting small m is equal to 1. So if the distribution of matter in the space does not change with time, then the gravitational field at any point in the space will also not change with time. So we say that the gravitational field is invariant, constant, that is not time varying, provided when the mass distribution is also time independent. As long as the distribution of matter in the space does not change with time, then the gravitational field at any point in the space also will not change with time. So that is about gravitational field. Now gravitational potential. So gravitational potential at a point in the field is the work done in taking a unit mass from infinite to that point. So, so it is energy, we can say. So the gravitational potential at a point in the field is the work done in bringing unit mass from infinite to that point in the field. That is the gravitational potential. So now we see the gravitational potential due to a point mass. Here we are considering a object of mass capital M, which is placed at origin, a point O, and we are taking another mass small m we can take, but here regarding the definition we are taking unit mass, therefore it is m is equal to 1. So that is the thing. So initially we are taking at B, and okay, right. So we are taking another mass small m. Here we are taking m is equal to 1 as unit mass. So the work done in bringing the unit mass from infinite to a point in the field. Okay, since there is a mass capital M, around the mass gravitational field exists. Here the totally here we gravitational field is there, we can treat there is the gravitational field around the mass. So we are bringing our unit mass from infinite to a point A in the field. So A is located at a distance r from the mass capital M. So therefore, in order to calculate the total work, at first we are displacing the unit mass by little distance dr from B to A, and after that, to calculate the total work done in bringing from infinite to A, we integrate from infinite to R. We apply the limits. Okay. So it is if there is capital M and if there is unit mass, the gravitational attraction between them is F is equal to gm by r square, which acts towards the mass, bigger mass. Okay, this one, or mass capital M, so which is towards capital M. Now we are moving the our test mass or unit mass from B to A. That means along the gravitational attraction direction. So now the work done is equal to F dot dr. Since they are moving along the same direction, the force is in the direction of displacement only. Therefore, F dot S, that is F dr cos theta, and here theta is 0, cos 0 1. So now totally it is the equation F into dr. So F is equal to Gm by R square into dr. Okay, now by integrating it, here variable is only R or dr. The remaining are constants. We write it outside and we integrate it. So 1 by R square into dr, that is equal to minus 1 by R. So the limits are from infinity to R. By applying the limits, at first we apply R, that is minus 1 by R, minus of minus plus 1 by infinity. So that is 0. 1 by infinity is 0. So in that way we are getting this. So finally we are getting the gravitational potential due to a point mass is V is equal to minus Gm by R, where M is the mass of the point mass. And here the vector gravitational potential is a scalar quantity. Scalar quantity. G is a universal, so gravity constant. Now we see the next one. Okay, right. You have seen this. Now here, so gravitational potential energy. So earlier, just before, we have seen the gravitational potential and the gravitational potential due to point mass. So the gravitational potential is defined as the work done in bringing a unit mass from infinite to a point in the field. But the gravitational potential is also the work done in displacing a mass. It is not unit mass, a mass m from infinite to that point, infinite to a point in the field. So that is the gravitational potential energy. So the earlier equation is for the work done for the displacement of unit mass from infinite to a point. Now we are displacing a mass of m or a object of mass m from infinite to a point in the field. The same thing, therefore we multiply it with m. So, or we can do the similar integration once more by keeping m instead of small m is equal to 1. We get the same equation. So therefore it is multiplied by m. So the gravitational potential energy is equal to minus G capital M into small m by R. Now, inverse square law of force. A force which is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the two particles, that force is called inverse square law of force. So whichever the force is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the two particles, so that force is inverse square law force. The gravitational force and electrostatic forces are inverse square law forces. So in the force equation of gravitational force, G into m1 m2 by r square. So that force is inversely proportional to r square. So r is the distance between the two bodies. So similarly, the Coulombic force also F is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by r square. There also F is inversely proportional to r square. So the gravitational force obeys the inverse square law condition, and it is taken as negative since it is attractive force. So as we just discussed before, these two forces are central forces. Now Kepler's laws. Kepler's first law. This law is also called as law of elliptical orbits. So this law tells about the shape of the orbit of the planet. So according this law tells that the path of a planet is an elliptical orbit around the sun, with sun at one of its foci. So we see in the next slide with a good animation. So now Kepler's second law. It is also called as law of areas. It gives This law gives the relation between orbital speed of planet and its distance from the sun. That means the distance of the planet from the sun. Okay, so this law says that the radius vector drawn from the sun to a planet sweeps out equal areas in equal intervals of time. So it is the law of areas. This is the second law, Kepler's second law. So that means areal velocity of radius vector is constant. So the area covered by radius vector in equal intervals of time is constant. That means in equal intervals of time, that radius vector covers the equal areas. Even though, so since it is, the orbit is not a circle, it is a elliptic orbit. So that means radius vector length continuously changes. So in that way, so the area covered in equal intervals generally, if it moves with uniform velocity, the area covered in equal intervals will be different, but it does not move with uniform velocity. Whenever the radius vector decreases, so in that case, it moves with faster angular velocity. Whenever the radius vector increases, it moves with slower angular velocity. So we observe in the animation. Okay, now we see this. So generally for ellipse, there exist two foci. So one foci, sun locates at one of the two foci. So now we observe here, two foci are there, and at one foci there is sun. Here we are observing, and it is the planet. It is revolving. So we see here again. So it is the two foci. It is the sun, and sun is also rotating, and the planet. Let us take it as Earth. So it is also revolving. So it is revolving at the same time, spinning also. If we see it, we observe spin motion also. So the planet is spinning and the solar sun is spinning, and so it is revolving. Spin motion is there, and orbital motion is there. So now we observe here that one. So the planets revolve in elliptical orbits. So in elliptical orbits, so sun is being uh, one of its foci at one of its foci. So it is semi-major axis and it is semi-minor axis. See that. So it is the first law. That means the shape is elliptical orbit and sun is located at one of its foci. It is information about first law, and the second law says that the aerial velocity is constant. That means, so if we see it, so this one, it is the radius vector. So a vector drawn from sun to planet. So it sweeps out equal areas in equal intervals of time. So that means, so so in this location, R is very high. R is high. So whenever the planet reaches this point, R is very smaller. So so if we draw, if it moves with uniform velocity, angular velocity, it covers only lesser area. But here, whenever it is approaching the sun, it moves faster. We can observe in animation, and we see once more again. So here, so it is moving faster whenever it reaches. Whenever the vector is smaller, it is moving faster. So in that way, aerial velocity is constant. Okay, it covers more area in the particular time. Okay, that one. Now we are seeing the Kepler's third law. So it is also called as harmonic law. This gives a relationship between the size of the orbit of a planet and its time of revolution. So time period of revolution of a planet and the size of the orbit of a planet, it gives the relation between these two things. So this law is also called as harmonic law, and it tells that the square of time period of a planet around the sun is proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis of its orbit. So this green one is major axis and brown one is minor axis. Semi-major axis means from here to here. So if we locate here, so from this point to here, it is semi-major axis. That is A, we can write, and this is B. Okay. So the time period of revolution of a planet in a particular orbit of semi-major axis A, then T square proportional to A cube. So it is the third law, Kepler's third law. We see the proofs of Kepler's laws. In this video, we see only second law proof and third law proof. Right. Now we are seeing here the proof of Kepler's second law. So it is a elliptical orbit. Sun is there, and if we consider a planetary motion, so if planet is at point P at some time t, and after some time delta t, it has reached another point P dash in the path of the orbit. Okay, so it has traveled delta r bar distance, and its radius vector, so it is r bar, and according vector addition, so this one is r bar plus dr bar. So it is the angle delta theta. So delta theta. Now we are observing one triangle. So sun, let us say it is O, P dash is the triangle. Okay. So in this triangle, so the area covered is equal to delta A is equal to half into base into height. So base is r bar and height is delta r bar, and 1 by 2 is multiplier. So we are writing this equation. Now if we divide the equation on both sides, the delta t, so delta A by delta t, that is equal to 1 by 2 r, and according the relation length of the arc is equal to radius vector into angle subtended. So just like L is equal to R d theta, arc length L is equal to R d theta. We are writing in the similar way. So delta R is equal to R into delta theta. So it is the equation we get. So now, according the definition of limit, as delta tends to 0, delta A by delta t is equal to dA by dt. And similarly, delta t by delta t is equal to d theta by dt. So delta theta by delta t is equal to d theta by dt. So we are writing these substitutions in above equation. Now dA by dt is equal to is r square d theta by dt into 1 by 2. It is the equation. So, but in the derivation of or in the proof of first law, we derive one equation r square d theta by dt is equal to h, some arbitrary constant. It is constant. There we derive d by dt of this quantity is equal to 0. So that means this quantity is equal to constant. So r square d theta by dt is equal to h, that is constant, one arbitrary constant. So from above, it is clear that dA by dt is equal to h by 2. H is constant and constant by 2 also a constant. So in that way, the area covered in equal intervals of time is constant. Okay. So thus the aerial velocity of the radius vector of a planet is constant. Okay. It is proved. Second law is proved. Now we see the proof of third law. So the time period, according to third law, the square of time period is directly proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis of the planet orbit. Okay. Therefore, at first we are calculating the time period. So the time period is equal to area swept by radius vector in one revolution divided by aerial velocity of the radius vector. So aerial velocity is derived in just before this slide. So and we calculate area swept out by the radius vector in one revolution. So area of the ellipse. So in one revolution, it completes one round. Therefore, area of the ellipse is our required thing. So therefore, generally the area of circle is pi a square, but here AB are semi-major and minor axis. Therefore, area of the ellipse is pi AB. So and aerial velocity is derived just before now. So it is h by 2. So similarly, t is equal to pi AB by h by 2. So we are naming it as equation 1. But in the proof of first law, we derive one relation, the semi-latus rectum. So now we have compared the motion of planet with ellipse. Okay, ellipse with some quantities. According those quantities, semi-latus rectum is h square by mu, where mu is equal to gm, capital G, capital M. So h is some arbitrary constant. So it is according the equation derived in first law, but according in geometry relations of ellipse, the semi-latus rectum b square by a, and these two are equal. We can equate them. So h square by mu is equal to b square by a. From this equation, we are writing h is equal to b by h is equal to b into root mu by a. So we substitute this h equation in equation 1. So from equation 1 we are getting, so 2 pi ab by h, actually 2 pi ab by h is equal to b into root mu by a. and b is cancelled, and t is equal to 2 pi a by root mu by a. If we square on both sides, so t square is equal to 4 pi square a cube by mu. So it is the final equation we have derived from this equation. So even mu also, mu is equal to capital G and capital M. So capital M is mass of the sun. So T square proportional to a cube. So which is said, so which is nothing but the Kepler's third law. So the square of time period of a a planet is proportional to the semi-major axis of the orbit of the planet, the cube of the semi-major axis of the orbit of the planet. Okay, t square proportional to a cube. So it is third law. Okay, in this lecture we have seen, so what is gravitational field? So it is a space in which we can experience the gravitational force of attraction. That means by keeping a mass m. So now that is gravitational field. After that, gravitational attraction. So the force experienced by unit mass in the field is gravitational attraction. And the gravitational potential. So the work done, the gravitational potential at a point in the field is the work done in bringing a unit mass from infinite to that point in the field is the gravitational potential. So the gravitational potential energy. So it is also the work done in bringing a mass, a object of mass m from infinite to a point in the field. So that is gravitational potential energy. After that, we have seen the Kepler's laws. The equations for gravitational force of attraction is F is equal to G capital M small m by r square. That is the gravitational force of attraction between two objects of mass capital M and small m. Later, gravitational attraction, that is defined for unit mass. Therefore, small m is equal to 1. The force per unit mass, that is gravitational attraction. Gravitational attraction is equal to capital G capital M by r square. So later we have derived the gravitational potential. The gravitational potential is equal to minus Gm by r. So it indicates that, so generally we can see above equation also here, V is equal to minus Gm by r. Generally, if r is decreased, gravitational potential increases. So, but since there is negative, as r decreases, the gravitational potential decreases. As r increases, the gravitational potential increases. That means as we are going away from, the mass, given mass, the gravitational potential increases. So similarly, we can see the gravitational potential energy also. So if the objects are far away, the gravitational potential is more, and if they are smaller, at lesser distance, so as r decreases, so the gravitational potential also decreases. Okay, so just like that. Later, we have seen Kepler's first law. It tells that the planets revolve around the sun in elliptical orbits, and the sun is one of its forces. And second law, it is the law of areas, says that the radius vector drawn from sun to planet sweeps out equal areas in equal intervals of time. And third law tells that the square of time period of a planet is proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis of the planet of orbit. So, okay, the orbit of the planet. So T square proportional to A cube. First law is also called as law of elliptical orbits. And second law is also called as law of areas. And third law is also called as harmonic law. So thank you very much for watching.